Welcome to She Who Leads in Love, a podcast for women ready to live freely and do what they love. I'm your host, Ginny Gane. Together, we get to explore what it means to choose your truth over your conditioning, trust the energy of love over fear, and confidently step into the fullest expression of who you really are. It's time for your most extraordinary life experience. Let's create. Welcome to this week's episode, where we're going to talk all about the path of following inspiration and what it actually looks like in real life. Now, I have a couple of stories to share with you, but first off, a funny story about recording this episode. So I just spent a really lovely week in my hometown with family and my friends, and I was very excited about recording this episode because the stories that I'm going to share were happening like in real time. So I was staying in my parents' house. I was sitting down to record this episode, and I was getting to look out at these beautiful trees in the forest behind their house, and the buds were just starting to come out. And I got halfway through the recording, and then I realized I had not pressed record. And I was like, oh shoot, okay. Well, that was fun. Let's do it again. And then I spent the next 40 minutes or so speaking and recording, and I was just really feeling into all this energy of inspiration and flow, because that's what we're going to be talking about. And then I finished and I went back to listen to the recording, and it was only video. There was no sound. And honestly, I felt a little bit of defeat in my energy for about 5 minutes. I'm like, oh my goodness. But then I kind of started to laugh because I was recording a podcast on inspiration and flow, and it was clearly not flowing. So I reminded myself, okay, Ginny, this is one of those times you have to pause and trust, right? Stop taking action that I think is right now and pay attention to where is this energy guiding me. And it was in that moment, okay, it was understand, okay, stop, let's go for a walk, let's continue on. And so just another fun real life example of how to practically trust the inspiration. And I'm kind of curious, let's see how divine timing or whatever is unfolding here might be a part of this recording coming out a little bit later than it was originally planned. Okay, so today we're going to talk more about like what becomes possible when you stop forcing action and you start flowing with your energy. Okay, so when you choose energy alignment before action. Okay, when you learn to trust inspiration instead of overriding it by what your mind thinks is right. And I'm really intending by the end of this episode, you might just have a whole new perspective on what a slow day means or what a creative block means and what's possible when you trust your energy. So one of the most impactful shifts I see women make when they start learning how to step into their power and start paying attention to the quality of energy is this shift from forcing to flowing, from pushing to allowing, and from the doing to actually trusting. Now, I know you've probably heard somewhere about how beneficial it is to follow inspiration in your life. It's this idea out there, follow the inspiration. And likely somewhere inside of you, you accept this concept that following inspiration would be good for you. But then you get face to face with the reality and your list of things that you're responsible for, right? And it gets kind of tricky to figure out, how do I actually follow my inspiration? How do I do it? Like, what do I actually do? And I totally get this. So I've been consciously practicing following my inspiration since I started coaching way back when. And here's the one thing to do that will make learning to follow your inspiration get easier and more obvious. Now, I notice that the more I pay attention to what inspiration feels like, okay, the more sensitive I am to the energy of inspiration and knowing when it's present and when it's not. Okay, it gets clearer and clearer the more you notice the feeling, not the outcome, not the action, not the specifics, but what does inspiration feel like? And just paying attention to that. Because what I thought was inspiration 4 years ago was actually sometimes closer to more of like my mind's excitement about something. And as you develop this sensitivity and clarity, and it comes through self-reflection, when you're excited about something or you feel a pull and you ask yourself, is this the feeling of inspiration? You don't have to have a logical answer in that moment. You just keep asking and you will receive answers. You'll begin to sense the feeling pattern. Okay. And you'll learn, just like everything else we have to learn, you'll learn what your inspiration feels like in your body. No one else can do this for you. I could talk about it and explain it a million, but you have to experience it in your body. And in order to understand what it is, that requires that self-reflection on your part without analysis or attachment to the outcome. Just start really paying attention to the feeling without judgment, curiosity. What is this inspiration? What does this feel like? And I promise you, the more energy and attention you give this feeling in you, the more it expands. The more the energy of inspiration expands, the more inspiration you allow to flow through you. Now, when you think of inspiration as the creative source energy, it's like you're turning the voltage up the more you pay attention to it, which is kind of fun. And it feels really, really fun when you get to experience it. So part of the inspiration for this topic on inspiration flow came from a client I was speaking with last week. It was actually the morning I tried to record this. And what she was sharing, it just got me so excited about what's possible when you embody alignment first creation. And I wanted to share it with you. But before I get into the story, I want to bring an awareness to this kind of old or traditional way of getting what we want in life. We were taught through school, through family, through culture, that results come from effort. Okay, that if you're not achieving what you want, you need to work harder, push more, be more disciplined. And so we do. We push and we force our way through the to-do list, through the health and fitness regimes, through showing up for all those things we don't really want to do. It's very action first focused. And when resistance shows up, as in when we don't feel like doing something, or when we feel blocked or tired or frustrated, which simply means when energy isn't flowing, we almost instantly judge the situation. And mostly we judge ourselves. Okay, we start to label our behavior as lazy or procrastination or not being disciplined enough. And then we either force ourselves through the action or we spiral into this self-criticism because we didn't do it. We didn't follow through on what we said we wanted to do. And even there is a part of us that wants to do it. So if this sounds familiar, this is exactly what we're talking about today. And I know this experience because I have watched this judgment in my own mind about a gazillion times. So here's a perspective that might help, and just kind of let yourself feel into this. What if the resistance isn't a problem? Okay, so what if not wanting to do something isn't actually a bad thing? And what if the block isn't a sign that something is wrong with the situation, or especially wrong with you? What if the block isn't a sign that something is wrong with you? And in a more general sense, what if the exhaustion that you're feeling isn't because you're not doing enough, but because you've been operating completely against your own nature? Okay, you've been operating in a way that misaligns with who you really are. So like I mentioned in the episode about what is your inner being. We were never taught to listen inwards or to follow inspiration. We were never taught to trust our bodies or to honor the timing of our ideas. We were taught to produce and perform and push through. And this works for a while until it doesn't. Until you find yourself burnt out or uninspired or going through the motions and wondering why nothing really feels alive anymore. And in my experience, this exhaustion or burnout or this uninspiredness is your soul inviting you to expand your consciousness and vibration and to create an experience of greater fulfillment. And so this is where the new way comes in, alignment before action. And this brings us back to why when you're feeling the resistance, it's so important that you catch that judgment of there's nothing wrong with this. I am not wrong. The situation is not wrong. Okay, this alignment before action, you're just being called into a new way where it's feeling first, energy first creation, right? Letting your energy inspire you to take action and then creating from inspiration rather than obligation. Okay, so let me tell you about what my client Jasmine was sharing with me last week. Now, I've been working with Jasmine on and off for the past many years, and she's living so many of her dreams of creating music and abundance and international living. Her amazing partner and their little girl, I just love them so much. And now she's stepping into this whole new level of creation with her creativity and expression. Now, Jasmine's really been focused on this practice lately of following inspiration, choosing play, doing what she loves instead of pushing and forcing her way through the things she thinks she needs to do. Now, this doesn't mean she's not doing the things she needs to do. She's just practicing taking a pause, tuning into the energy before she bulldozes through the doing. And another way of saying this is just bringing more awareness into your energy of what you're doing, right? She's leaning into this new way of creating where alignment comes first. So a few weeks ago, out of nowhere, and if you can't see me, I'm doing air quotes, nowhere, this opportunity landed in her Instagram DMs. These are always some of my favorite moments when someone is like out of nowhere. And I'm like, you mean in reflection to your vibration of joy and fun. So a brand had seen her project that she'd done for Adidas about 3 years ago, and they wanted her involved in something new. The head of the company reached out to her through Instagram, which I just think is so fun because it's one of those ideas of like, oh, that would never happen or that, and it happens. And the terms were great. The money was more than she expected. And she had so much fun artistically creating this demo. She was really in the joy of creation. And then it didn't pan out the way she thought it would. And here's kind of like the turning point, because the old version of that story ends with a spiral of fear and self-doubt and this disappointment taking over, right? The second guessing that since this thing outside didn't turn out the way I thought it would or should, maybe this isn't working. That old narrative creeps in. And there still might have been a few whispers of that, but Jasmine has built a strong foundation in her truth. So even when it wavers, it doesn't for long. And the momentum she created was strong enough that she could feel the dip and still stay anchored to the belief. And this is what she told me. I trust the energy I put into this project was joy. And the energy of joy can't be wasted, right? It's like we talked about last week with Kelsey. Like, what's the worst that could happen? I live a life of joy. So the other belief coming in for Jasmine was, I know it will be this, or it will be something better. This or something better. I know things are always working out for me. This is what she was telling me that she tuned into. So this happened a few weeks ago. And then last week when we were talking, she shared something even better showed up. More money, better terms, an even more aligned opportunity. So amazing, fantastic. But this is not the end of the story. This is the part I actually really love, because I just love the inner journey we are all on. So even with this incredible new project in front of her, she still felt resistance when it came to taking action, which often happens when we are up-leveling, when we're stepping into something new. And so she's very aware, and she would tell you that in the past, the resistance would have won the battle, right? She would have pushed the energy, forced herself to get the work done, and likely spent a lot of time judging herself for not feeling better or feeling more inspired about the work she was doing. But not this time. Okay, this time she chose to be with the resistance, okay, instead of running from it. So when she felt resistance, she didn't turn away, she didn't ignore it. She explored it. She created space for herself. She focused her energy. She felt any feelings that were there, and she worked through it slowly, little bit by little bit. Okay, tuning back into her truth through different exercises. We were doing some writing exercises, breath, focus. She chose to activate her creativity and her sense of flow. And she allowed her joy along the way. Okay, the really fun part, right before we got on the call together, this inspiration that had been missing hit her, and she was out and about it. She wasn't working on the project. It just kind of came to her when she was doing something else. And she sat down and she had a full, complete version of the project done in under an hour. And she's like, it was fun, and it was in the flow, and it all came so quickly, and she loves what she created. And she shared part of the reason she wanted to do this the new way, like with energy first, is because how much she knows that the energy of what she produces in inspiration, firstly, is always better. Like her work is, she actually loves her work, the product she created more. And secondly, it gets better results in the world. So this is the practice, is prioritizing fun, the joy, the play now, along the way, not waiting for it. It's about trusting your inspiration will arrive in divine timing, creating the space for you to feel, to play, to create, and knowing that when everything is aligned, you cannot not act on it. That's that feeling of inspired action. There's no thought. It's just like, it's not even I have to do this. It's just like, I'm doing this. And usually the timing of this does not fall into our mind's idea of when is right. And it's not like, okay, I would like to be inspired at 7 a.m. every morning, and this is what I'd like to create, which that's the tricky part for our mind. So let's pull a little bit more out of what Jasmine's story is actually showing us, because there's some really powerful kind of ideas woven through this. And the first one is this: resistance is not a stop sign. You feeling resistance is not a stop sign. What happens for most of us is that we sense this resistance or this not wanting to do something, and immediately, like most of the time, we can't even catch it. It happens so quickly. We immediately judge it as something is wrong. So like I mentioned, this one shift in perspective can be so important. Resistance is not a stop sign. It is information. Resistance is always in some way a signal of a misaligned energy within you, between the thoughts of your mind and the thoughts of your soul, we could say. But it does not mean something is wrong. You're simply being given information through this most amazing, intelligent body of yours. Think of resistance as information. And it's at this point, when we notice the resistance, that we get to enter into relationship with our resistance and choose how to respond. Okay, do we choose force, fight, and judge? Or do we choose presence, acceptance, allowance? And we're choosing presence with what we're feeling, what we're experiencing, the thoughts that are going through our head. We're choosing acceptance with what is here right now, not the situation. So Jasmine was in a place that she had the capacity to practice the energy first approach. Okay, she sat with the resistance, she allowed it, and she moved through it bit by bit. And I'm mentioning this because we don't always have the capacity to practice this way. And wherever you are, the most important thing is the awareness and the resist the temptation to judge yourself and practicing the awareness. Because as you do, your capacity to choose new will expand. So the second kind of expansion I want to highlight from the story is the this or something better anchor. Okay, this is a belief. This is a conscious choice of perspective that says, I don't need to know how this is going to work out. I just need to stay connected to the truth that things are always working out for me. And that it will be this or something better. This or something better. Now, when the first opportunity fell through, Jasmine didn't collapse into nothing works and I must be doing something wrong. She held the anchor, this or something better. And in a way, this anchor energy held her. This is exactly how it works. The third powerful part of the story is the difference between waiting and trusting energy. Okay, they feel very different from the inside. The energy of trust feels different in your body than the energy of waiting. And this might be something you can kind of tune into and pay attention to as well. Am I waiting or am I in waiting energy? And what does it feel like? Am I in trusting energy? What does it feel like? Because oftentimes waiting can be a little in the energy of lack, right? It's hoping. It carries this greater focus on the future, but the focus is it's not here yet. Whereas trusting is very active. It's connection to an inner knowing that is here right now. And it's claiming what you're focused on creating now in this moment. One of my favorite quotes by Joe Dispenza is, if you are waiting, you're not creating. And this is referring to, what are you doing with your focus right now? Your power of creation exists only in this present moment. And you're either saying to yourself, I'm waiting for inspiration, or I'm creating joy in this project, or I'm creating joy in this action. You're saying, I feel appreciative to be taking action on this now, or you're saying, I'll feel better when it's done. Okay, you're either in the joy of the journey or you're waiting for the future to feel satisfied. So Jasmine wasn't sitting on her couch staring at a blank page waiting to feel good. She continued living her life and consciously prioritizing what felt good, even if it was in other areas. And this is a big key, right? Explore the other areas. The path to this alignment in the inspiration generally will come path of least resistance. And if we have resistance for whatever reason about a certain subject, then we'll be guided around and through so that we can come back as we build momentum. So she kept creating in a more general place and meeting resistance with awareness, and the specific inspiration for her project found her in the perfect time. So this is the how of living in the flow. And the more we practice, the more flowy it gets, the easier the inspiration will flow. So thank you for letting me share your story, Jazz. Actually, I know Right now, she's enjoying another opportunity that dropped out of nowhere in an all expense paid 5-star hotel stay where she gets to work on her music all week. So that's another amazingness. But maybe next time we'll have to have you on the show and you can tell us all about it live in person, because it is always so much fun when it comes straight from the person living it. So I want to share another story now, kind of along the same lines and more examples of how you can trust the journey of allowing and not forcing and pushing. Because again, the more evidence we are creating of this, the more we're giving our brain the examples and evidence of what is possible, the easier it is for us to trust it. So 2 weeks ago, I had one of those mornings where some of that old energy crept back in. It was a very familiar, this anxiety of not doing enough. And for me, there's a heaviness that comes with it of not being enough. I'm not enough. This has been by far the most challenging fear for me to move beyond. It's this quiet, persistent whisper that says, you're not quite enough as you are. You have to do more. And I've realized this shows up the most in these exact situations we're talking about today of creating dreams, where I have big dreams and I want to create them, and there are things to do to make them happen. But I'm also being guided to slow down and not take action. I'm being guided when I look within to align first. Okay. And all I really want to do is force that action and not feel whatever arises if I get still, because that is what happens. When we start to practice this and we choose to take a pause and we choose to not force action that doesn't feel fully alive and aligned, there is usually something we need to feel and allow to move through in order to come into alignment. Now, intellectually, I know my value. I know my worthiness. I've known it for a long time. And over the last few years, I've been doing some of this deeper work of actually embodying that knowing, right? Not just thinking it, but feeling it as true within me, aligning to the vibration of it in my body. So now when that old energy shows up, it's different. I have a different experience with it, and I can really see it for what it is. There's more space between the me that I know of as my true self and this old energy and fears and identity around you're not enough. And sometimes it feels like greeting an old friend. It's like, oh, hey, you again. But now I know what to do with you. And now I have the capacity. Like I mentioned before, we have to really build our capacity to choose new. I now have the capacity to love myself through the old energy and stories coming up. Okay, this wasn't always the case, but this journey really is so much of practicing and building the capacity to meet yourself where you are. It's not about getting it right or wrong. So what I do now when those old familiar feelings of failure or self-doubt arise is I allow it. I don't fight it. I don't try to logic my way out of it. This is so important. I don't try to force myself into a better mood. I allow it. And on a practical level, I get really gentle with myself. I slow down. I take care of my body. The other morning, I listened to music. I literally just laid on the bed and stared at the ceiling. I focused on my breath. I will often take a bath or go to the beach, get out for a walk or a stretch. And the allowing for me is about getting out of my head and choosing slow, nourishing energy. Now, I know I am extremely appreciative to have the space that I can do that in my days right now. I don't always have the space. And if you're in a situation like that, it is more of a awareness of, I know what kind of energy my body's being called to right now, and creating the space for that, really prioritizing that over things you think you need to do. There is always space when we step back and really own the most important thing for me to do right now is to give myself this nourishing energy and create the space for that. So when I made that choice to start giving myself that energy bit by bit, not all at once, but a little bit by a little bit, things started to shift. Okay, so I was walking our dog Kaya. I was consciously feeling the sunshine and appreciating the fresh air. And then someone sent me a message saying how my podcast had touched them. Then a neighbor needed help. And as we were walking by, and we just had this little light, friendly interaction. And then I had a beautiful call with our Soul Fire women. And it was with each small moment, the energy in me started to move again, started to flow again. Not because I forced it, but because I allowed it. And I'm sharing this because I think we all are pretty good at taking care of ourselves when we feel good and full and alive. And it's when we don't feel good that we just struggle and we get stuck. And I know it can feel so frustrating to hear, just allow it, choose love when you're in the thick of it, when you're feeling so off. But what I've experienced over and over again is that the more I allow what is, the quicker it moves, not through effort, but through love. And learning how to do this, learning what it means for you to allow, for you to choose love is an exploration. It is a journey in itself. So the very next morning, I woke up so full of energy, so full of excitement for the day. And an idea that I'd been sitting on for 4 years suddenly had a how. I was not asking for it. I was not even focused on it. It just dropped into my mind, clear as anything. I was in the middle of my morning coffee and I had to pull out my laptop and I just started putting it into action. So for the next hour, I could feel this energy just flowing through me in this inspired creation. And let's sit with this for a moment, because I think one thing my story illustrates is that the allowing, it's not passive. It's not just sitting doing nothing. Okay, choosing to allow what you're feeling, choosing not to fight it, not to suppress it, not to force your way out of it, is one of the most active, courageous things you can do, especially when everything in you just wants to fix it and move on. I was putting notes together for this episode and I opened my Instagram, and the reel I opened to had a man saying, "It takes 0 self-discipline to work yourself to the bone. 0. But to pause and meet yourself and build that emotional self-awareness. Now that's discipline." And we have to remind ourselves that there's never any requirement or pressure to make a choice that we're not ready for. Okay, we always get to choose. And the more you fight the feeling, the longer it stays. Energy that is resisted persists, but energy that is allowed, that is met with gentleness and presence, moves. It shifts on its own, not with your effort, but with your love. So trust your dips, trust your body to move through them with you. Like, let the journey back to your feel good be gradual. And above all, be kind to yourself. And this brings me to something I want to offer as a reframe. Self-love is not a luxury. It's not the reward you give yourself after you've done enough. It is the strategy. It is the thing that clears the channel. It is the practice. when I felt the sunshine, when I walked my dog, when I breathed, I wasn't avoiding my life. I was tending to my creative vessel. I was creating the conditions inside me, my internal environment, for inspiration to return. And it did. When you're on this awakening journey for the long haul, the dip is never evidence that something is wrong. The dip is part of the process. It's not proof that this doesn't work, this way doesn't work. It's actually an expression of it. Because in the old paradigm, you push through the dip. You override it. You produce anyway. And you might get something done, but at what cost? And with what quality of energy in it? Okay, in this new way, the dip is honored. You slow down, you nourish, you allow, and what comes out the other side is so much better than you could have imagined. You get to live, really experience the evidence of what happens when you're practicing the energy first, alignment first. Okay, so let's bring this all together right now, because what Jasmine's story and my story are both pointing to is the same thing. It's a different way of being in relationship with your own creativity, your own energy and resistance, and ultimately your own life. Alignment first creation means this: you tune your energy first, then you act. You get yourself into the energy of joy, of openness, of acceptance, and then you act from that place, not the other way around. Okay, most of us have been doing this backwards our whole life. We think, I'll do the thing and then I'll feel good. I'll push through and then I'll feel relief. I'll achieve the goal and then I'll feel worthy. But what if we flipped it? What if we found ways to feel good first? And sometimes feel good can be too much. What if we found ways to feel neutral? What if we found ways to feel open? What if we found ways to feel accepting first? And then watched what becomes possible from that place. Okay, it isn't about doing less. I want to be clear about that, because I know sometimes that's a fear that comes up, that I can't just sit here and get everything I want. And that might be the answer. Like I said, I laid on the bed and stared at the ceiling. That was a piece of the shift. So this isn't really like an invitation, just sit on your couch and wait for lightning to strike. It is an invitation to be intentional about the energy you bring to your actions and to your to-dos. So to stop spending your creative energy on things that feel forced and flat, right? Start building the trust that when you create the space, when you follow the joy, when you allow the resistance, and when you honor the dip, the inspired action will come. And what it produces will be extraordinary. Jasmine created a complete project in under an hour from a place of pure inspiration. I woke up with the solution to a 4-year-old idea after a day of doing nothing but being gentle with myself. These are not coincidences. This is what happens when you get out of the way and you let this life energy work with you instead of trying to force your way through it. And it becomes a practice, and a daily, ongoing, often very imperfect practice of choosing. Okay, choosing to follow what feels inspired, choosing to slow down when your body's asking for it, choosing to trust the timing is always right for you, choosing to believe that things are always working out for you, even when it doesn't look like it yet. That is what's possible, and it's available to you. So as we wrap up today, I want to leave you with this. You already are a vessel of pure love and creation, and the world is ready to meet you in your energy of allowing, in your expressions of inspiration and truth. And I feel so clearly that the world is inviting more of the real, true you, more of what flows through you when you're in full alignment with who you are and what lights you up. Thank you so much for being here today. If this episode resonated with you, share it with a woman you love who's also creating the life of her dreams through inspiration. And remember, you are a powerful creator and you have always got this. I'll see you next week.